Welcome everyone to MEW Recap. Here we will be recapping episodes 1 to 19, the most recent episode. And let's begin with episode 1. Let's go back in time. We started with a tournament to determine who will be the first ever MEW champion. Haunted Jacob took on Soul in a first round matchup, and man, Haunted Jacob was happy. Soul was not. Came out very short. It was the fastest match in MEW history. Haunted Jacob hit a roll-up and then pinned Soul. So he advanced to the finals and would face the winner of this match, Skeletor against the Slasher. And who came with the win? Well, it was the final boss, Skeletor, who advanced to the finals and would face Haunted Jacob on episode 2. Skeletor, who took on Haunted Jacob in a banger of a match, well, he became the first ever MEW World Champion. The final boss would successfully pin Haunted Jacob after hitting a skull-crushing stunner. But now, let's advance to episode 4. On episode 3, the week before that, Skeletor and Soul teamed up, but tensions grew on that match. Soul who tripped Skeletor. Skeletor was mad, Soul was mad. He was supposed to face Soul on episode 4, but turned out to face the Slasher, and Slasher who came up victorious. Skeletor was so angry that he challenged Soul, Haunted Jacob, and the Slasher at episode 5. However, Soul, the hacker of MEW, became the new MEW World Champion with some help from Sinister, who joined Hack Supremacy. Soul's faction. We skipped to episode 7. We were going to determine the number 1 contender in a triple threat match. It was the Slasher taking on Skeletor and Haunted Jacob. Haunted Jacob would win. He would become the new number 1 contender. We skip to episode 10. Hack Supremacy is getting stronger. It is getting better. The introduction of Damien Skull from CBW to Hack Supremacy. We still have Sinister. But on this day, on episode 10, Soul successfully defeated Haunted Jacob. But with some help. Skeletor would return and team up with Soul, joining Hack Supremacy. He returned after missing 2 weeks after he left MEW for a short while after losing against Sinister. And wow, this was one of the best moments that happened. Skeletor joining Hack Supremacy, putting his career in a position where it could only get better. Teaming up with the best thing going on in MEW so far with Soul, the MEW World Champion. Soul defeating Haunted Jacob. But something was up. Sinister was no longer in Hack Supremacy. Sinister was gone. But episode 11, we saw the debut of Gladiator. Gladiator, the monstrous psycho Maximus, who faced against the Slasher, and Gladiator with a monstrous win, with a huge win. We skip to episode 15, the most recent premium live event in MEW. We saw Sinister, who was not in Hack Supremacy anymore, and we saw Jacob's last chance match taking on Hack Supremacy in a handicap match. But what we got was Haunted Jacob defeating Hack Supremacy with a little help from former Hack Supremacy member Sinister. And Sinister, who unveiled massive things. He literally called out Skeletor. He called him a liar. He called him a traitor. And soon after that, we saw the Residents of Fire match. Gladiator, who would take on his rival, the Slasher, the Residents of Fire. The first time we would see that, Gladiator came up with the win. Episode 16, we saw Skeletor get kicked out by Hack Supremacy. We got Sinister pinning Soul. We got the suspension of Soul, and that literally says it all. The shock face. Here you have Soul assaulting Skeletor. We saw Sinister pinning the MEW champion, Soul, who has never gotten pinned since he got the MEW champion. And we got the suspension of Soul. Like, wow. We skipped to episode 17 and we saw the revelation of this man. Howdy was born. Skeletor was no longer the final boss. He was no longer the eccentric one. He was no longer the Hack Supremacy member. Uncle Howdy took this man and brought him to this. Howdy Skeletor became a monster, and he took on Haunted Jacob in the most gruesome match in MEW history. But who came up with a win? Haunted Jacob. Howdy Skeletor, without his mask, couldn't do it. And that was the reason Haunted Jacob won. Episode 18. We saw the debut of Damien Skull from CBW. His in-ring debut taking on Skeletor. Not victorious, but good showing. And episode 20, this Sunday, we will see Damien Skull taking on Sinister on the kickoff show, which starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. We will also have, starting off the show at 9 p.m. Eastern, the Slasher taking on Gladiator in a first blood match. The main event, Howdy Skeletor looks to become a two-time MEW World Champion against Haunted Jacob, the current MEW World Champion. And it all goes down this Sunday. Kickoff show, 8 p.m. Eastern. Ultimate Night of Fatality main show, 9 p.m. Eastern. Press conference immediately following Ultimate Night of Fatality. It is so big, and it will be such an awesome event, and don't miss the return of the hacker of MEW. So, thanks for watching MEW Recap, and we hope you now know everything that's been going on in MEW. We are Montreal Elite Wrestling, MEW, together forever.